right, good morning, everybody. My name's Jacqueline Hironaka. I'm a principal product manager in the Exchange organization. And
my name's Trent Green. I'm a product manager from the SharePoint side, working on archive and backup as well.
Great, thanks. I hope everybody was rejuvenated by the attendee party last night and is awake and able to listen to us about the backup, archive, and enhanced version controls today. Data in Microsoft 365 is growing at an incredible rate. This is driven by organic content creation by our end users, as well as generative AI that is creating content for those users. In addition, customers are migrating content into Microsoft 365 to take advantage of all of our collaboration, security, compliance, and AI offerings. To put this into context, we see then more than 2 billion items created in M365 every day. This large data growth presents challenges when it comes to backup and restore and archive. Customers often think that they are exporting data to another location and they can solve both problems with a single product. Unfortunately, they will end up with a product that doesn't solve either of their problems particularly well. So we're introducing two separate solutions. Microsoft 365 Backup is optimized for business continuity and fast recovery. Microsoft 365 Archive is optimized for long-term, low-cost, and compliant storage. So let's start by talking about Microsoft 365 Backup. We often hear customer concerns about their ability to restore from ransomware attacks or accidental or malicious deletions of data. This can cause business interruptions. Ransomware attacks have increased twofold in 2023 as compared to previous years, and the companies have been paying more than $1 billion just in 2023 alone. While there are products on the market that can attempt to solve these problems, there are still some challenges. The speed at which you can export large volumes of data becomes increasingly impractical as any reasonable scale, the growth of the size of the tenants has caused. Privacy and security is also a challenge with these existing solutions. What a customer really needs is business continuity assurances. They want to be able to get their company back up and running as fast as possible. With traditional backup solutions, you need to migrate all of your data to another system. So let me walk you through what today's solutions look like. First, you must grant backup and restore read-write all permissions to your data. The exports then begin, and the data is egressed out of M365 to another data location. If an attack occurs, you'll need to then migrate all of that data back into your tenant. This process can actually take weeks or months for large volumes of data, and that's time you just don't have when your business is under siege. In response to these limitations that we just talked about, we are launching Microsoft 365 Backup. The magic behind the offering is that their data stays within your Microsoft 365 trust boundary and is protected with same methods as your primary data, having multiple physically separate copies to maintain high availability and disaster recovery durability in the service. The backups are immutable and will have all the same geo-residency, privacy, security, and compliance promises as your primary data. So we're initially launching with Exchange, SharePoint, and OneDrive. Customers can adopt the solution either by using the first-party product via the Microsoft Admin Center or by purchasing a third-party product that is built on the Microsoft 365 backup storage APIs. So we'll talk about a little bit more about that later. With the new Microsoft 365 backup product, your path to recovery is much faster. You can back up your data quickly, and most importantly, you can restore easily on the order of hours. During this entire process, all of your data stays within the M365 trust boundary. Further highlighting that point, because Microsoft 365 backup data stays within your tenant boundary, we'll automatically honor your geo-residency requirements. So for example, if your company is required to have its data stay within your country, when you enable backup, You won't have to do any additional configurations or auditing in order to have that data also follow that same georesidency requirement. With this product offering, we limit the admin permissions required to manage the product, and that's something that's generally not possible when granting traditional backups products that both read and write all permissions to your data. So the Microsoft 365 Backup Admin is scoped just for this product without any additional permissions required. So to summarize, business continuity is all about your ability to recover to a healthy state of your data. So remember that you are only truly backed up if you can recover at scale quickly. So as previously mentioned, you can adopt M365 Backup through your native offering in the M365 Admin Center, most people call it the Mac, or via a third-party application that's built on the Microsoft 365 Backup Storage APIs. Regardless of which you choose, you'll be able to get the same reliability and performance benefits of the platform. So how do you choose? Our direct offering is great for customers that primarily use just M365 products or only prefer to buy Microsoft-built applications. Alternatively, you can adopt a third-party application built on top of these backup storage APIs, and we're excited to have the value that these third parties can actually offer. So they can provide a single pane of glass for your M365 data, as well as the other properties of data that you have, be it on-prem or a SaaS or another cloud solution. They could also add lifecycle management to help you better control your data and help you figure out a robust recovery plan for all the data that you have for your company. So let's take a look at some of the foundational features of the platform. So the backups will have a 1-year retention period, which we believe suits most customers' operational needs. We will have a 10-minute recovery point for an entire year for Exchange and the trailing 2 weeks for SharePoint and OneDrive. When you extend beyond the 3 weeks or more, SharePoint and OneDrive will have weekly backups available for restore and likely daily file restores coming post-GA. The backup granularity is at the site or user account level. So for Exchange, this includes all mailboxes belonging to a user. So that's their primary, their main archive, and their aux archives. When triggering a restore, granularity for SharePoint and OneDrive is at the site level today and will be expanded to support file level post-GA. For Exchange, even in our public preview, the admin can choose whether to restore an entire mailbox or at item level. So we have a granular search, and then you can restore just the items that fall under that search criteria. Admin actions with the Microsoft 365 Backup product will be auditable as calls are made in a delegated fashion, further strengthening your security and privacy posture. So let me walk you through a demo of the product. So I'm going to be the tenant admin of this tenant. So starting on the Microsoft 365 Backup landing page, which is listed under Settings in the Mac, I'm going to choose to configure some of my SharePoint sites. I can configure my backup policy to include only sites I wanted to be able to restore. I can choose my sites via a CSV upload and then check my settings and create the backup policy. Once the policy is applied to my sites, I can see that the policy is marked as active. There we go. The system is now taking backups of my SharePoint sites. If an event occurs, I can trigger a restore. I can choose sites I would like to restore, also can be done via a CSV upload, and then I can choose my last known good time of the items I'm attempting to restore. I can then choose my restore location, in place or to another location, and then check my settings, and then trigger a restore. I can track the progress of my restore or look at previous restores that I have completed, also on this landing page. So our native offering is currently in public preview, and it's going really well. So if you're interested in signing up for our product, please do so from the Microsoft Admin Center, the Mac. Public preview for our APIs for our developer partners to support third-party applications will begin at the end of May. And then we will be making improvements on public preview for our GA, and that will release in H2 for both the 1P and 3P version of the product. We already have some innovations that we want to make to our post-GA roadmap. We look forward to you using our product and giving us additional feedback so we have additional items that we can place for improvements in the future. All right, so now I'm going to be handing off to Trent to talk to you about our low-cost, long-term, and compliant storage product, Microsoft 365 Archive.
Thanks, Jacqueline. Okay, let's talk about Archive. So Microsoft 365 Archive is an in-place, cold-tier SharePoint storage solution. It is built for long-term storage of inactive SharePoint content. Here's how it works. Today, many companies, I'm sure like many of yours, have a lot of SharePoint storage, standard storage within SharePoint that is used to power active collaboration. In reality, the majority of that content is inactive. First step to utilizing Archive is to identify which of that content needs to be kept in the current tier for collaboration and which content is inactive and generally more ready for a colder tier. Using Archive, you can move that content to the Archive tier, all while keeping that data within the SharePoint boundary, unlocking low-cost maintenance of that Archive data. Using Archive, that data will be moved to the Archive tier nearly instantly. This is in stark contrast to how export approaches work today. Using Archive will also maintain all metadata losslessly. This includes the folder structure, permissions, settings, lists, these policies, etc. Lots of things, everything comes back exactly the way it went into Archive. Archive content will also be searchable for both compliance admins and for end users. And lastly, all the data in Archive is kept within a single security and compliance boundary. This immensely reduces the overhead of managing your data and ensuring it is both secure and compliant. When the content is archived, it is done so in place. This means that the service takes care of all the data movement behind the scenes, so the management is simple and easy for IT admins. Here's a breakdown of the features of Archive. And as you can see, the main differences are the instant readability and the price. In other words, in exchange for a 24-hour read delay, Archive content is a quarter of the price of hot storage today in SharePoint. Key fundamental promises of Microsoft 365 data, like searchability, e-discovery, retention policy, strong security, and more, are all kept identical as they are in Archive. Again, I want to be clear that this is inside of the SharePoint boundary, and nothing is changing in terms of the key fundamental promises of Microsoft 365 data. Site-level Archive is our first product offering in this space and can be utilized today in many ways. First, used as a bucket for inactive files. You can move files and folders to a dedicated site, much like the classic records management approach, and then archive that site when you're done. You can do this for as many sites as you like, and we've already seen strong adoption in the public preview of customers using this by creating a new site every month, moving archive-eligible content, files, and folders into that site, and then archiving that site at the end of the month. Next, if your company has project-based sites that become eligible for archive and become inactive once, you can easily mark that entire site as archive, and your work is kind of done with that. We hear this in project-based industries, such as construction and consulting. Finally, we know that migrations are always top of mind within Microsoft 365. We've seen customers already integrate archive into their migration workflows today. They do this by creating and then funneling inactive content during the migration into that site, which they then archive when the migration is complete. This allows for speedy migrations that neither require heavy scrutinization of which data to delete before the migration, nor does it result in a cluttered and unusable experience once the migration is finished. Here's a very quick, too quick walkthrough of how IT admins can archive and manage archive sites today in the SharePoint Admin Center. As you can see, the admin can select one or more sites to archive. They can easily archive it with one click. and then view their list of archived sites when they're done. When they need to access those sites again, the admin can initiate a reactivation, which will automatically move the site back to the active sites page when the reactivation is complete, which should take no more than 24 hours for any site. Let's talk about billing. Site Archive is billed via monthly storage, priced at 5 cents per gigabyte per month. This is 25% of the cost of hot storage, which is today priced at 20 cents per gigabyte per month. In this example, you can see a tenant, a certain amount of tenant quota, the yellow line you see, which they've exceeded by 200 gigabytes. 20 cents per gigabyte, this company will be paying an extra $40 per month for hot storage in this fictional company. However, if they archive that same 200 gigabytes instead, access data would at the archive rate, and their new bill would only be $10 per month. If the company wants to add some extra archive buffer or simply has extra content that is ready to be archived, they can archive it without worry of incurring extra charges. As you can see in this last example on the right, any archived content below the yellow line here will not be charged and is covered by tenant storage. So you can safely archive as much data as you like. In addition to the monthly storage fee, there's also a site reactivation fee. Since cold storage technology is best for long-term storage and is expensive to restore from, Microsoft 365 Archive echoes that cost structure to ensure the monthly storage is as cost-effective as it can be for you all. Since there is a reactivation fee, your storage savings with Archive will vary based on how much content you reactivate and how often. You can tell from this middle row here that the average company we've seen so far roughly reactivates 10% of data roughly twice a year. At least that's the trend we've seen so far. At this rate, a company can expect a strong 70% storage reduction in storage costs compared to traditional hot storage in SharePoint today. Today, Site Archive is manually orchestrated by IT admins. In the future, however, it will be automatable by both first-party policies and by Microsoft partners who choose to orchestrate on your behalf. The first-party policies will be part of the SharePoint Advanced Management offering under the policy tool for site lifecycle management. This will let IT admins set up automated policies to identify, validate, and ultimately archive these inactive sites. Partners will also be able to enact similar policies by calling Graph APIs. These APIs will be available soon. Now, another super quick video, apologies. This is a quick video showing that first-party site lifecycle management policy that I mentioned before. A lot is happening here in this short video, but the gist of it is showing an IT admin creating automated policies to run on inactive sites. The admin decides how and when to contact site admins, selects to archive these relevant sites per the policy, and at the end of it gets a report after the policy is run, showing about the success and the amount archived. More about this site lifecycle management policy, you can watch a recording from yesterday, or you can join a session today at 9:15 a.m. by Dave Manassian, talking about how to prepare your company for Microsoft Pilot with SharePoint Content Governance. Okay, I want to quickly talk about file-level archiving. File-level archiving has been the biggest ask we've heard since we released the SharePoint site-level public preview. We know that it's going to be a great complement to Site Archive when it launches in 2025. While the exact experience and behavior will likely change before we launch it, I want to share a quick sneak peek of the behavior and early concepts we've put together. File-level archive will empower end users to declutter their experiences by showing archived content when they want to see it, all while keeping archived files in line so that users A, never lose context of where those files live, and B, never feel like they've lost data unintentionally. The UI will clearly denote which content is archived versus which is active, and when a user wants to gain access, they'll be able to easily reactivate a file and gain access in line within 24 hours, very similar to the Site Archive approach. And lastly, just like Site Archive, all will be searchable by end users and compliance admins. I want to pivot and talk about enhanced version controls coming to SharePoint. We've heard from you that versions today in SharePoint are very powerful, but still have some room for improvement. The top customer challenges with versions are that low-value versions are consuming too much storage while admins have insufficient controls and limited analytics to make informed decisions. Given those challenges, our priority is to reduce the version storage footprint while optimizing your user's ability to recover from error or file damage. Introducing enhanced admin controls over version storage. This starts with new limits to manage your version storage. Today, you can only apply count limits at an individual library level. With upcoming changes, you'll be able to choose between automatic and manual to set the right level of recovery versus storage use. I'll dig in the next slide deeper into why automatic is our recommended suggestion for optimal version storage use. I also want to call out that you'll be able to set organization defaults to apply a consistent version limit across all new libraries created in your organization if you wish to do so. You can also set site or library level to meet your content needs at whatever granularity you choose. You will also be able to report on version storage use to make informed decisions related to storage management. And lastly, you can reduce version storage today from existing versions by trimming versions using jobs. I'll take a second you can all take pictures of this slide. Okay, so as I mentioned before, automatic limits is our recommendation and is based on the principle that the restorability of versions reduces as they age. I'm going to say that again. The restorability value of versions reduces as they age. Automatic setting uses an algorithm to gradually thin out versions as they age while storing and maintaining those versions at key timestamps. This offers your users access to file versions over a wide time range and optimizes storage use. Let's take a look at this quick video that shows the algorithm as versions get created. In the first 30 days, all versions within the 500 count limit are stored. For the next 30 days, hourly versions will be stored. At the 180-day mark, daily versions are stored, and then beyond 180 days, weekly versions are kept indefinitely. This results in a great medium where users can still have all of the restorability points that they see valuable while also reducing your storage footprint. When it comes to choosing the limit for your organization, there are two criteria that you need to evaluate. The first, which is the middle column you see here, is how the setting will impact my user's ability to store their versions. The second, the last column, is how the setting will impact my storage usage. Let's compare the three limit approaches against these two evaluation criteria. With count limits only, your users will have access to all their version history, but it does lead to a high storage usage through the lifecycle of the file. With expiration limits, versions are set to expire. With versions set to expire, you'll be able to reclaim the expired versions, but it could leave your users with restore options past the expiration date. With the new automatic intelligent limits, they're designed to optimize both for version storage options as well as for storage use. Again, this new approach is the best of both worlds and is the recommended approach from Microsoft. Together, version controls, archive, and backup create an amazing foundation for scalable, cost-effective, and protected enterprise content. Deploying these tools together empowers you to optimize what content consumes your storage, what tiers should be matched with which kinds of contents, and ensures your most important data is safe and recoverable from any mishaps. I'm going to leave this up on the screen so you can hopefully scan the QR code to learn more. And at this point, I'm going to open it up to questions and answers. Thank you for your time.
First, I want to congratulate you. This is the first session where you didn't use the word co-pilot. I think that's excellent. But now I'm afraid I have to do it. With regards to the archiving functionality, you said it was accessible by search. Does it mean that it's also accessible to Copilot?
For now, data in archive will not be available to Copilot.
Okay.
We believe archive data is no longer the most relevant data to show.
Yeah.
So for that reason, we hide it from Copilot.
Okay. Thanks for the answer.
Of course.
And a nice session.
The enhanced versioning, can you enable that on the tenant level for all SharePoint sites, or is it only for a specific site or document library?
You can enable it at the tenant level for all new sites, and you can run jobs to trim existing versions from existing sites.
Thank you.
Will be any mechanisms in place if a site is going to be archived, if it's tied to any Power Automate workflows or anything like that, to recognize that this may be interrupted or an automate workflow might impact your archive or incur a charge if you're trying to pull something out, something might be archived or backed up.
So today, there's no supported UI in the Power Automate flow, but we do return an error that you are able to parse via Power Automate and determine whether the site has been archived or some other issue is going on. So you should be unblocked, and we are exploring options in the future to make that a better experience. Yes, that is something we're exploring, but no concrete plans right now.
Will this be included in all licensing levels? Will it be like just E5? Would it be add-ons?
It's a great question, and I'm now realizing I should have said that in my talk track. So there's no no license requirement. All of these are pay-as-you-go and purely based on the, we both mentioned it was on a per gigabyte amount, so there's no license requirements.
So similarly to the SharePoint Premium products where you have to put in like an Azure subscription and it's a pay-as-you-go model, these 3 products will be a per gigabyte charge.
I work in higher ed, and there's some storage changes that are happening in our space. Is there any thought to actually being able to archive entire user OneDrives?
Actually, I'll bounce that question back to you. Can you outline, what your reasoning is for wanting to archive users' OneDrive?
Absolutely. We have students that leave the organization for maybe a year, maybe 2 years, and then they come back to the organization. And our ability to be able to restore their content, but also not have it incur charges for storage in the meantime would be a nice to have.
Got it. Yeah, so we've heard that exact use case before. We are exploring the ability to archive OneDrive accounts. It's not available right now, but we are figuring out how to make that part of the product. So, thank you.
Just over here.
So I'm assuming this is in commercial only, not for state, local, education, nonprofit tenants today?
It is not available for education tenants. I'm not sure about the other ones that you mentioned, but if they're different SKUs, then it should be available just for commercial for now.
Are you asking about version controls or
Any of it. I mean, so
backup?
I deal with a lot of, in all 3, with commercial, with government, and education. Those are the 3 ones we deal primarily with. And we run into a lot where, that's not available in the government cloud yet, or that's not available for education yet.
Yeah, so normally we go to our, what we call special clouds, right, after we GA in worldwide. Right, and so we're still in previews, and so we haven't GA'd yet. When we do GA, they will come out in the next couple of quarters after.
Okay. So let's suppose I have a mailbox that has a litigation hold, and that user leaves the company and he is terminated now. We take back the license and it becomes an inactive mailbox. And
a mailbox that's on litigation hold, is that what you're saying? And can we, with backup and restore?
yeah.
Restore it.
Yeah.
Is that the question? Yes. So at GA, we will support mailboxes that have litigation hold enabled or any other kind of hold enabled. Yes.
Thank you so much.
That was a limitation of private and public preview, though. Yeah.
In one of the slides, you talked about retention period 1 year. Is there a plan to extend that?
Yeah, so one of the things that we're looking at is variable retention times for backup and restore. And so at GA, it's going to be a year, but we're looking at having the admin be able to configure it to certain durations, right? So some customers have asked for less, some customers have asked for more. But yes, at GA, it'll be 1 year, but we're looking at variable timeframes.
In the roadmap, you had restore level on the backup for files only, like in the future. Does that include like list items in SharePoint?
Right now, we have it at both the site level, but we also guaranteed that there are file versions that should count for items in lists as well. And we're going to be adding more support for granular search and restore of that data in the future.
Do you have any idea on the time frame?
Unfortunately, I can't share a timeline for that at this moment.
Yeah, my question's about version history. In terms of the version history and the changes to that, we're seeing issues in particular where they've used the OneDrive sync, and that's increasing the numbers of version history. So where they're using the sync capability to put into File Explorer and saving it in there, that seems to be giving us more version history. Is this going to start to solve that? Because it's not just in pure SharePoint, it's coming in on that interface as well.
So if Sync is bringing the versions to the cloud, you can definitely use these tools to trim and reduce your versions. If there's some other issue with Sync and versions that I'm not aware of, I'd love to learn more.
We're seeing something. I mean, some of our people use it massively because they can't step away from the file explorer structure because it's so comfortable. But we're seeing sort of like, a 5 gig file, version history is taking up 8 terabytes in the team site.
Yeah, so you can definitely use these tools to trim out versions that have been synced and are causing your storage to bloat. So yes.
What is the user experience when they have a SharePoint library synced and we put it into archive?
Yeah, so when I have a syncing library on a SharePoint site and I put it into archive, the library will disconnect from the sync client, and we will kind of follow the same flow with unmounting that synced library as you would if you were decommissioned from that library. And we are adding more enhancements to make sure that it is a better experience, and that's something coming soon.
So at this point, there's no notification to the end users that are using that library, right?
Not a direct notification yet, but as I mentioned, we are exploring making that an even better experience, but it will kind of gracefully unmount today.
Okay. So the other thing is the backup solution, backup versions as well as the regular or the main file?
Yes, the backup solution does backup versions. It backs up all that content.
Okay, and I'm assuming that any custom solutions that we put into place at that point in time are backed up as well, and or archived. So any custom code or anything we put in that are not native out of the box.
So you're talking about a custom solution. What kind of custom solution?
Yeah, if we build some custom APIs that create different libraries or lists or any code.
Yeah, if it's creating libraries and lists, all those things would be backed up as well.
Okay.
As long as it's part of the site or OneDrive or Mailbox as well, that content will be backed up if you put it in backup.
When you're saying you can migrate content to an archive site, what tools are you talking about to do the migration?
So I want to be clear that you can migrate content to a site and then you can archive the site today. There's no support yet for migrating directly into an archive site. So you can use whatever migration tool you want to migrate into a site, and then you can archive that site. There are a couple restrictions in the documentation about types of templates that can be archived, but for the most part, any site you move into, you can be archived after you migrate.
Okay, also, if I'm not an administrator in the tenant, I'm not a SharePoint administrator, can I use the archive functionality, or do I have to involve one of the administrators in the admin center to use that?
Yeah, right now, Site Archive is only run by administrators since it does have cost implications. You should talk to your IT admin and see if they can either delegate that to you. But yeah, right now it's only available to IT admins.
Okay, because what we're using right now is applying a site policy to the site and setting it to read-only using that. That's really the only thing I can do as a site collection admin.
Yeah.
Before I was able to use lock state, but how is lock state set to read-only different from an archive? Just the storage that it's using?
Lock state is a little different. We treat the search a little differently, and we treat the UI of the site a little bit differently. And then, as you called out, the main delta is around the storage and how that's calculated for lock state versus archive.
Is there any thought on the billing side of the backup stuff to be able to have some segmentation there? We've got different parts of the organization that would most likely would need to be billed for their backup components. For easy example, institution number 1 is backing up a bunch of their SharePoint sites. Great, they need to pay for it versus the finance department backing up their data, they need to pay for theirs.
Yeah, so we kind of are putting that under the umbrella of departmental billing, so being able to separate billing into different segments so you can kind of build them individually. Yes, we are exploring it. No, I don't have a timeline.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely post-GA.
On the mailboxes, you said user mailboxes are backed up. Is there no shared mailboxes that are?
So at GA, we'll have shared mailboxes. In public preview, it's user mailboxes only.
Groovy. Thank you.
Does the archive work with lifecycle policies? So instead of saying delete after 7 years, archive after 7 years?
Which lifecycle policy? In Purview?
Yes, in Purview.
It might eventually, but today it's not an option.
Okay.
Yeah.
Back to the restore on the backup. Right now, you're doing full site, like backup and restore. How does that impact subsites? Can you do a full restore of just a subsite, or you have to do the whole site?
It's a great question. So right now, when you back up the site collection, the whole thing is backed up. So in terms of restorability, your subsite is protected, but there is no support today for restoring just to the subsite level. I think it's been pretty clear that we do recommend migrating to site collections when you can, and then you would be able to get that granularity. But yes, the answer is it's definitely recoverable, but not individually recoverable to the subsite level.
So I think one of the things that we talked about was you can restore to another location. So what you could do is restore the entire site and then pull the data from that other location back into the subsite that you wanted the data in. Well, great. Thank you, everybody, for attending this early morning session.
Thank you.